Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Sales Hacker webinar. I'm psyched for this, guys. I'm your host today, Colin Campbell. I'm the Director of Marketing at Sales Hacker. I hope if you're a regular on the webinars, you know me by now. Today, we actually have something that you, the Sales Hacker community, asked us for, because here's what happened. A couple months ago, a little while back, we had my friend Ellie, who's the CMO at Crayon, on, and she talked about how to make a really, really great battle card. And if you don't know Crayon, it's a competitive intelligence sales enablement platform, and it's awesome. What happened during that webinar, we were talking about how to make great battle cards, and we got all these questions about, from the audience, like, oh, I've got great battle cards, but my sales team just isn't using them. Like, how do I make sure that we get some adoption going here and that it actually sticks? So what we figured we'd do is bring back Crayon to talk about battle card adoption. So you know what you signed up for, but just as a reminder, that's what we're talking about today. There's a 5-step playbook that we've got for battle card adoption, and I'm joined by Lauren Kursanski. Did I get it right?
You totally got it right. That was great.
Yes, Lauren Kursanski. She's the Senior Marketing Manager and lead sales enablement as well at Crayon. So Lauren, thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Ellie's on vacation, so she's, she deputized me to talk about adoption today. Super psyched to chat with the Sales Hacker community.
I'm psyched too. And so what I want to do, a couple things before we dive right in. First of all, everybody go down to the bottom of your screen. I'll give you a minute. Click chat, and then you'll see a little box pop up, and then where it says blue, that little blue bubble thing, make sure the little blue bubble says all panelists and attendees. And that way, you guys can have side conversation, talk about what you're hearing. You can ask questions. You can see the questions other people are asking. You can help each other get answers. Let's make this a real conversation, right? You're in the live version for a reason. You know you can watch the recording later. Let's be here. Let's talk about sales battle card adoption. Okay, the other thing I want to do is just remind everybody that we are recording it, and you'll get the recording later if you need to step away. Share it with all your friends. Hey, Thomas from Dubai. That's cool. My wife's going to Dubai in a little while, a couple months. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm jealous. I can't go with her. Okay, and then I also, if we can, I want to get a sense of who's here with us today. So we're going to launch a poll up in a second. That's us.
Sorry, I'm behind.
That's okay. No, you're good. So yeah, who are you? I just want to get a sense of who's in the room with us so that we can cater our conversation just for you. I know my answer. I'll give you a couple more seconds to answer. If you got to think about this, that's a little weird. But all right, we're going to close that poll. I just want to see who's here. Maybe you guys are curious too.
I mean, should be applicable to all these audiences. So
I think so.
Good. Oh,
okay.
Spread.
Interesting. So not a lot of SDRs or AEs. A fair amount of sales enablement folks. You're in the right place. Bunch of frontline sales managers, also the right place. 22% marketing and a couple of VPs. Perfect. Perfect. Now we can make sure our conversation is just the right amount of helpful for everybody. Cool. Thank you for that. All right. We're going to dive right in. Remember to use the chat box, talk to each other, talk to us. No more chit chat from me. Lauren, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Great introduction. You're a great hype man, Colin. Thanks again for coming, everyone. Super psyched to talk to you about battle card adoption. So, before I dive into the playbook, let's just level set here. What are battle cards and why do we use them? Well, the biggest reason is that because deals are getting more competitive than ever. We're seeing tons more competitors out there, sales reps on the call. You guys live this day in and day out. And when we turn to the data on competitive deals, so this is from the 2020 State of Competitive Intelligence report. It's a yearly industry report that we put out every single year. And what we found was that out of the over 1,000 respondents from sales and marketing backgrounds, 90% of those respondents said that their businesses had become more competitive in the last 3 years. So overwhelming majority said, they're seeing more and more competitors every single day. It's becoming tougher and tougher to win those deals. But on the flip side of that, for the people that are doing it well, that are doing this stuff really well, we found, their secret sauce is sharing competitive intelligence every day. And those who were sharing every single day, those respondents were 2x more likely to see revenue increase. So, you know, I think it really speaks to, you know, when competitive intelligence is fresh, when it's actionable, that's when it's at its most effective. And, you know, putting that fresh, actionable competitive intelligence into Battlecards is really the strongest vehicle for it. So that's really what the data says about that.
On the flip side of that too, before we joined, Lauren and I were talking about how bad it could be if your battle card is wrong. We're going to get into a little bit of that later, but I'm sure the audience is like fully on board that, you know, a good battle card, consistently well done, is a good thing.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it speaks to just how important CI really is. For those of you that don't know what a battle card is, figured most of you do because you're here today, but let's just let's do a definition. So battle cards, it's super popular tool for sales teams, typically created by the sales enablement or marketing folks like myself, and their goal is to help reps, you know, really overcome those competitive objections at every stage in the sales cycle. So maybe you got a quick dismiss battle card, you know, in your initial call, just kind of those quick hits to knock a competitor out right away. But maybe, you know, getting further down into a deal, maybe you're kind of in a feature battle, maybe there's something a bit more detailed for you. But ultimately, what a battle card is for is to help a sales rep win more deals. That's what it's for. And they're super useful because battle cards are probably the most tactical expression or like tactical translation of competitive intelligence. So, you know, there's so much that's out there that competitors and everything that's happening in the market, you know, what kind of, even just some examples here, like what kinds of marketing campaigns are your competitors running? Are there any, you know, pricing and packaging changes, any significant messaging changes, new product reviews, job postings? There's so much out there. You can't possibly just funnel all of that to a sales rep. That would not be useful. You want to take all of that and you boil it down basically into a battle card that reps would find super useful, and then they can get what they need right away. And battle cards, you know, can have a huge impact, like similar to the stat I shared about 2xing your revenue when you're sharing competitive intelligence daily. When folks do battle cards super well, it can have a really big impact. And obviously part of doing it super well is getting sales to actually adopt your battle cards and getting them to use them. So just a quick example here from a Lego, you know, they rolled out battle cards super well. You know, they were able to, you know, create them using best practices. They were able to, you know, get everyone on board, get the reps to adopt, and their win rate doubled overall, their competitive win rate, but the win rate against their top competitor that they were constantly losing to tripled to 95%. So they really make, amazing, right? They really make a massive difference when they're done well, but it can be hard to do them well, as what we're here to talk about today.
That's pretty epic. And the other thing to think about is even if you come up with a beautiful battle card that has just the right amount of information that's up to date and you roll it out well, chances are that, I don't know if any, like there are a couple AEs on this call, so you feel me on this. You've had some bad experiences with battle cards in the past. So it's not like the battle card you've been given is bad. It's that you, as a rep, may feel that battle cards in general, just not that useful. Sales enablement doesn't quite get me, you know? And so like, you're not just pushing adoption of the new thing you've created, you're kind of pushing adoption of, well, you're like changing a habit, right? Or changing a viewpoint on this, which is why the rollout of Allego and like what you're going to talk about today is so critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually that tees up the first part of the playbook perfectly, but so that's great. So the first thing, so before I get into the playbook, you know, what is actually the problem here, right? Like, okay, cool, like battle cards are awesome. That's what you're saying to me. You're saying they have all this, you know, win rate impact, but you know, why isn't everyone using them? Well, most battle cards just suck. Like, just gonna say it straight up. There's a lot of reasons for it, but you know, kind of the chief among them are the ones I listed here, and I'm gonna really go through these and dig through when we get into the playbook. But First, often they're kind of poorly made. A lot of people like to do walls of text, so not great. We'll get into that. They're often difficult to find. They don't really fit with the sales rep's workflow. Sales is, always looking for them. They're often super difficult to measure. So, how do you know what's working or what's not? Often they're created with no sales feedback or input, which Colin, you teed up super nicely, and that's what I'm going to talk about first. Probably the most important part of this whole thing. Again, and you also mentioned inaccurate, outdated, also an issue, and just plain not rolled out properly. So it's really a combination, like it's kind of just like the perfect storm of making sure that reps will never use your battle cards.
Shout out to Bruce in the chat, who's taking full ownership and saying it's his job to change the experience. I think something that happens is sometimes people blame the reps, or they just kind of get into complaining mode, maybe a little defensive, like I created this perfect thing and put it out there, and it's everybody else's fault that they're not. Yeah.
Nope. Thank you, Bruce. You're right.
Yeah. Killing it, Bruce.
Yeah, crushing it. So let's talk about the adoption playbook, right? Adoption is not even just for battle cards. I think adoption for sales reps, like whether it's a tool or any piece of like collateral, it's just a messy process because there's like humans involved. There's a lot of nuance. So I'm going to try to like break this down into 5 parts and, make it actionable, help you to navigate the delightful mess of the adoption playbook. Cool. So let's go through each of these steps. So adoption playbook, we're going to get sales to use them, love them, and win with them, which is the most important thing. So first, we want to build together to establish that partnership between sales and marketing, or sales and sales enablement, who's ever building the playbook, building the battle card. We want to make them awesome, follow those visual best practices, make our battle cards look great, put in the exact right information, make sure the information hierarchy is there. Then we also want to integrate with the sales workflow, making sure that we are giving sales what they need, that it actually fits into their workflow, into their day. Shout out again to Bruce, who's like, it's incumbent on us to help sales here, not the other way around. Earning our sales reps trust, which is a big part of battle cards in any type of competitive collateral. But I'll get into that. And then measure and iterate, measuring success or lack thereof, and iterating on objective metrics and feedback. Okay. Build together. Here we go. So this was the first thing I really, Colin, you teed up nicely, is really making sure that in the beginning, before you even build a battle card, that sales and marketing, or sales and sales enablement, have that partnership and they start building these together. Because I think what often happens is that a marketer or sales enablement person will build something in a vacuum. They'll build, a battle card and being like, this is awesome. Like, I'm crushing it. This is amazing. I'm the hero of the sales org. And often you create something that no one asked for when it happens. So
I love this example. Who came up with that?
So my gross example that I've used for you guys today is Cheetos lip balm. This was a real thing. I think it was in like the late 80s, early 90s. An example of a product that, probably a few marketers or a few product people were like, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's just like not talk to anyone about it, or maybe told themselves a story of, the market versus reality, right? And I think that's sometimes us marketers or sales enablement folks can do is like, hey, like, this is all the information they need. This is going to be great. This is how they're going to use it, but not asking sales about it. And you create this thing that they just don't find useful and that they've never asked for. So you end up with cheap, essentially. I will tell you, I had a lot of examples, but I was telling Colin, but I decided to do Cheetos lip balm. I think it's the most memorable.
So gross. So yeah, definitely. You can kind of imagine exactly what it would be like. It's super gross. Steve Williams says Pop Rocks toothpaste ? Which also so unnecessarily bad. So real? On this, I kind of don't want to know.
Yeah,
I kind of don't want to know.
Oh my.
On this topic of building together, can you share a little bit of what that looks like? Like, is it you sit down, is it like one kickoff meeting, you say, hey, we're going to build this, give me your feedback now, or like how iterative is this process?
Yeah, so it's very iterative and there's multiple steps. So
Okay.
Let's start with the first step. So there's a few steps here. I think the first step is just getting feedback, right? Like if you have, so if you have existing battle cards like right now and you're like, yeah, these need an overhaul, looking to like, revamp here, getting feedback directly from sales is so important. So you want to figure out, hey, like, what do you think of this battle card? And ask like pointed questions, like what's not working, like get really specific. What certain sections aren't useful to you? Are there certain things that you've said, you've used it on a call and didn't really resonate with a prospect? What's missing here? Are we missing some, product comparison tables or feature comparison tables? Are we missing, reviews? Like, what are we missing? And also like ask them just like how often they use it. It's better to have usage like view metrics, which we will discuss later because you want that objective metric because sometimes they might want to make you feel better and they're like, yeah, I use it all the time, and they don't. But most of my experience, sales reps tend to be a fairly honest bunch, pretty straightforward with their feedback. Just understanding how often they are using battle cards. And just getting that overall feedback to be like, hey, like, where do we stand? Like, what is the perception of battle cards right now? And if you don't have battle cards right now, I think just getting feedback on like, if you have any type of competitive collateral, like maybe got a one pager, a matrix, a deck, whatever it is, because that feedback could still be good context to apply to build, to your battle cards. I think so. After your feedback, you want to interview your reps, and the idea here is to really you really want to dig deep into how reps are actually handling these competitive objections, right? Like okay, who are you running up against the most in deals? Is it competitor X, Y, Z? Are there certain questions that that they struggle to answer? So like an example, I guess, would be like if your competitor has 24/7 customer service or something, like customer support, let's say, and you don't, but you have some other things, and you see that during your interviews, you see that like reps are struggling to answer that, then that's really indicative of something you want to put in your battle card. So actually, to the next point is like, after all of your interviews, you want to surface those key themes, that those common themes that you have between all your interviews and your anecdotal data, I would say. So, if you find like the 24/7 customer support example, right? You find that they either struggle to answer that or that all of them have different answers for it, which is still indicative of like, okay, this is a problem because we can't all be saying different things. So being sure that you surface those themes and then will help you focus your creation of battle cards, and it will feel a little less daunting when you start to create them.
So in terms of timing, do you just do this when you set out to create battle cards? Because you made a point earlier that it's important that the battle card is always up to date, right?
Oh.
And I assume it would also be important for us to be getting the sales team's feedback on a regular basis. Do you have like a monthly sit down with them to talk about battle cards, or how do you do it?
So I would say, like, so in this particular context that we're talking about, this is like, hey, I'm building battle cards and I'm going to get everyone to adopt them. So that's what we're talking about in this context. Right. In terms of feedback, it should be constant, and it should, hopefully you have you can establish that kind of culture in your sales and marketing org, that feedback is constant and sought out. I would say the easiest way is to really give them the ability to comment directly on battle cards. So whether you're using a tool for that, maybe you're using, if you decide to use a Google Doc, like whatever, to, give them the ability to comment directly on there and like just give that feedback, because
so it's real time.
Yeah, so it's real time, and also like you don't have to do this like quarterly, like time to update the battle cards, and it's miserable and like no one likes it. And then process over again. I do think even if you have constant feedback, if you like establish that process and that feedback loop, I would very much encourage. Maybe like every few months, just to maybe slightly even repeat this process again, because even if you're getting constant feedback, every now and then it is useful to be like, hey, like let's sit with the sales reps, let's understand that let's make sure everything's going well with the battle cards.
Get in depth with it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, nothing. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense. So it's like an iterative like a real-time feedback loop because
Totally.
Crayon reps are just commenting right on your battle cards.
Yeah.
But then every couple months you sit down and like you have
Yeah.
an in-depth conversation. What about these works? What doesn't?
Exactly. And especially if you
Cool.
feel, and we'll talk about measurement later, but if you feel like, hey, we're not really winning against this competitor, those are kind of like some signals to be like, something's not right. We might need to kind of
Yeah.
here to
Yeah.
the drop.
Okay.
Also get in on sales rep calls. I love listening to sales calls, actually. It's super fun as a sales and marketing person. But I would say, after you do your interviews, you want to listen in on calls with that are going to be competitive. Have some of your rep pals put you on a competitive call so you can listen in. And the purpose here is to compare, you want to compare your results from the call, like what you hear on the call to what you just did and what you heard in the interviews, because sometimes when you're asking or interviewing a rep, you're getting like their perception often, which isn't necessarily like wrong or anything. But perception is a little bit different. So you can actually, if you're on the call, you can actually hear and hear it for yourself of how prospects are asking questions about competitors and how reps are themselves answering those questions. And again, similar with the interviews, those common themes and pain points and cross-reference them with the interviews. Again, are there common themes that cross, or maybe there's some new themes that have come up that especially if you're listening on the calls, it could be new themes that maybe reps don't actually realize is a problem and they didn't bring up in interviews. So just a really good way to round out that perspective. Okay, so let's say you create the battle cards. We're going to go into a little bit creation best practices, but we jump a little bit ahead in terms of the build together piece. Mm-hmm. And a great way to drive that adoption is just simply host some trainings. I think especially if you're doing battle cards for the first time in your organization, and maybe if you have like a less experienced sales team, doing an in-person training can just be super helpful. It can really opportunity to dive deep, almost like a demo, like showing them how to use the battle card. But I would say what's key here is selecting, 1 to 2 reps as your co-presenters. And again, like I said, like we've established that partnership in the beginning with the sales reps, right? So it's like, they are your co-presenters, they are your partners in this battle card, initiative. And they're really your champions, right? Like, you guys have champions when you're, as prospects on your calls. These reps that you'll present with are your champions and will help, drive adoption, get their fellow reps super psyched about battle cards. I'd also recommend some role playing, which very common in sales trainings, but some role playing exercises using the battle cards can be super helpful just because it gives gives like a real view of how to use them and just very straightforward. So hosting training is always good.
I love that you said it's like a normal product demo because the more I listen to you and Ellie teach me about battle cards, the more I think of them as a product. So if you sell any kind of product or service, think about how much work you have to do to get people onboarded.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's in your customer success team and your support team or service, whatever it is spending a lot of time. There's a whole onboarding, there's a whole process built around that. And, if the product is bad, then the experience is bad. So right. Do you think of your battle cards and your rollout as a product for your sales team?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I guess I would think of it that way because really like what you're doing is at the end of the day, I'm not creating these for myself. I mean, sure, it's my job, but like I'm not using them. The sales reps, they are the consumer, they're the user, they're the buyer, whatever. It's really for them. So deeply understanding, what their needs are is just so important to create a battle card / product that is gonna solve their problems and fill that need. So yeah, I think that's a great question. I definitely think of it that way.
Cool. I like that. I think of these webinars as a product too, by the way.
I mean, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
So this tip is probably a bit more for folks that are bigger companies. So if you kind of have if you're kind of in a more enterprisey organization, maybe you have multiple sales teams, you know, multiple sales teams, and rolling anything out is like kind of a big deal. I recommend just running a pilot. Pick a sales team, maybe usually kind of the smaller-ish, the better, just so you can have like that tight feedback loop. But yeah, select a sales team to really just pilot your battle cards, test them out. Still, you know, interview and do all the steps I said before, but roll it out to just a small sales team, set some clear goals. So maybe it's, you know, upping your win rate, which we'll get into. Maybe it's like usage, just, you know, set some guidelines there. And just iterate on feedback and the results that you get from that team. Because I think, you know, again, there's a few like, you know, really positive things that come out of this, right? There's one that you just get that really tight feedback loop because you're working with a small sample size and you can just kind of like you can move a bit faster in a large organization. But also it's really kind of like an internal case study for the rest of the sales teams, because
it gives you some success to point to so that they're more encouraged. Yeah.
And like it builds your credibility, because especially if you're like at a really big organization and like maybe you don't know everyone on the sales team and like you're the marketing / sales enablement person, you're like, hey, use these. People are like, all right, I guess, you know, having, you know, a sales team being like, hey, you know, we use these for, you know, X amount of months. We use these for 2 months. Here are the results, you know, and have them, again, like they're your champion, right? Like they're selling it internally to the rest of the organization. So pilot can be it might sound like you're like, might be, oh, this is just battle cards, like a whole pilot. But I think if you're in a big org, it's really worth it to like kind of slow down a little bit and take this step, because it will pay off for you in the long run.
Beautiful. All right, so building together. And then, so you have in this Make Them Awesome section, this is a sneak peek. If you haven't seen part 1 with Ellie, this is a sneak peek. We're just going to fly through this really quickly, because if your product is crap, it doesn't matter how hard you try to get people to adopt it. It has to be good. So there's just a couple quick examples like good, bad, and then we're going to move on to the adoption stuff.
Totally.
Cool.
Yeah, so perfect, right? Like make them good in the first place. If you make something that's crap, like what's even the point? So let's just go over some like quick best practices. Again, we got watch part 1. There's also a blog post on the Sales Hacker site about building battle cards. So, you know, review those. So anyway, you want to start just by building your foundation. You know, so if you're starting to build up battle cards, whatever exists internally, like scoop up all that competitive information. So whether it's a competitive analysis, whether you've done it, or maybe, you know, someone else in your org has done it, get those takeaways and analysis, any competitive landscape reports or market landscapes, any competitive profiles, anything that is any competitive in nature, just kind of like bring that all together, because it's just going to give you like a nice base to understand, you know, what might you want to include in your battle card. But as we know, you want to build a foundation, right? But it's not static. Things happen in the market really quickly and really fast. So you want to establish a process to just track the intelligence going forward. So, you have your foundation, and then you say, okay, like, you want to make sure that you're monitoring your competitors across, their digital footprint. So if there's, what kind of marketing campaigns are they running? Are there significant messaging changes on their website? That's something that's going to be, it has to be boiled down and put into a battle card, because clearly they're shifting position. Monitoring new product reviews that they get, or even like job postings, right? If you see, a job posting, for your competitor in like a certain, maybe it's like a certain type of, product manager or something, like it could tell you a lot about a company strategy and where they might be going, and could make its way onto a battle card. So just making sure you're tracking those intel types going forward. So what to actually like include in the battle card? So these are like the typical things that you would include, like what I would recommend starting with. I would say
what I would say here is, just for the sake of time, absorb it for a few seconds. But if you want to really get into this, I put the link to the last webinar in the chat, so you can go watch that.
Oh, awesome. Great.
Is this example, though, this visually, just the layout and the display of this is a good example. Yeah, it looks pretty good to me.
This is a good example. And actually I have a slide that kind of goes through like what a good battle card looks like. So yeah, just absorb this for a minute. Key differentiators, warning signs, all this stuff really important to include in a battle card. Here we go. Visual formatting best practices. So again, it's actually the same example, but yeah, so I think the most important thing here is making sure that it's just very digestible, right? Because a sales rep is on a call with a prospect and not gonna be like, hold on, and like, you know, go through a bunch of things. It needs to be digestible and visually, you know, bullet points at your friend, and you can see here, like, this is super visual, so you can see like, you know, videos, you can see images, you can see colors and text so that your eye is drawn to important information. So just keeping it very, very visual, very digestible, short and to the point is super important. And each component, like I went over in the previous slide, you know, competitor overview, things like that, that should all have its own section, kind of like you see. It shouldn't be like this long document of
file, like the example you have that's do not do this example.
Exactly. And actually, we'll go right to those examples, right? So again, this is the example of a good one, right? And I already kind of really went through it, but highly visual, right? Lots of videos, lots of images. I would say what's different here is also battle card being framed for sales reps, right? Like, so they're actually positioned, you know, it has, you know, sound bites, things a sales rep would actually say, and isn't sort of written like some robot, which I think, unfortunately, a lot of, you know, sales enablement marketing people like myself would be like, oh, this is the information, not like, here's what you actually say on the call. So making sure it's totally framed for your sales rep or your user. And then just finally, some third-party data is always great to include and reference. So I think like G2 Crowd, Trust Radius, if you have great reviews there and maybe your competitor does not, those are always really good things to reference on your call, because it's third-party data. You know, it's, you know, case studies are good, right? But they're made by you, and obviously it's a little biased. Third-party data is always good to like kind of include in there. Okay, here's a bad one from Hooli. Any Silicon Valley fans in the house, I'm sure. Yeah, so good. So this is an example of a really crappy battle card. There's like very few bullets. There's just kind of a wall of text going on. There's not like a lot of variation in colors, so it's just kind of like, nothing really stands out. If you can actually see, it's also multiple pages, page 1 of 6. There's no reason to have a 6-page battle card ever.
That's a battle book.
Yeah, exactly. It's essentially just a book at that point. And then again, this is not at all framed for sales reps. It's very like, you know, bit robotic, not really about sound bites and what a rep might actually say.
Yeah. It's not based on the conversation.
Exactly. It's not conversationally based at all. And also outdated pricing. You can see that's from 2016. Surely the pricing is different at this point. So we'll talk about outdated information, but that is definitely, you know, a massive, massive issue of battle cards. All right, we got through Make Them Awesome. Now we'll slow down a bit and dig into the rest of these. Good.
Actually, I have a couple really good questions I want to throw your way, Lauren. This feels like a good time. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
So Steve asked, or one of the things Steve said is, back when we were talking about interviewing sales reps, he said, you know, one of the things I hear is that people have trouble actually finding the battle cards. Wow. So on the topic of integrating with sales workflow, where do you put them? Because you said it's not like you can't just send it as an attachment in an email, right?
No, you can't, Steve. You teed me up so well. I love it. Thank you. Actually, yeah. So yeah, you should be, your battle cards, and this is exactly what we're about to talk about, is your battle cards need to be integrated entirely with your sales reps workflow. So basically where your reps spend most of their time. Actually, I'll just dive into it. This is for you, Steve. It's
perfect.
Yeah. So, you know, I get this all the time, is like, hey, where are those battle cards? And, you know, marketers and sales people do this all the time. Like, oh, I just sent it to you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not dogging on the reps here. It's the opposite. You know, it's incumbent on us to say, no, like, we're going to make sure that this is easiest for you. One use case, like, problem I often see and that I've experienced in the past is, you know, maybe, you know, you're on the marketing team or sales enablement team and you guys use like Confluence, right? Or you use a wiki like Tetra, one of those. And you're like, okay, this is where the Battlecard's going to live. But if your sales team like does not really use the wiki, like you shouldn't put it there because that's for you. This isn't for you, right? It's for them.
So if a rep is spending 80% of their time in Salesforce, you should put them there, right? If they have. What about an outside rep? This is actually a question we got from Lori, because we're talking about, like, if you are on the phone with a prospect and you have the ability to have a screen up that they can't see, you can reference a battle card really quickly. Have you ever had or heard stories from people who have outside reps? Like, how would you use a battle card if you're in the field?
Yeah, so again, it's still the same because you're still accessing a CRM, you're still accessing a platform if you're able to access that via mobile. Just putting that there is I think it's kind of the same, right? It's still you're accessing battle cards where you spend most of your time, even if you are. So you also make sure it's mobile or something like that is also really helpful if you're like literally in the field and you don't have your computer and you have like your phone, making sure you can just access through there as well.
Right. So it may, for the outside rep, it may be that they just have to study it beforehand a little bit more, because you probably don't want to have it printed out like in front of you in the meeting, like, hold on.
Of course not. Oh, sorry. Yeah, right. I understand your question. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that could be tough. I would probably say study that beforehand. Sorry, I didn't catch your meeting for a second.
No, that's fine. That's probably my fault for asking like wording Lori's question not well.
No.
Steve says that field reps could get tattoos of the battle cards and just put it on your tattoo it on your palm.
I love it.
It's a good idea, Steve.
Good idea, man. Clearly, I love it. So in general, about making sure that you're fitting into the sales reps workflow is accessing battle cards, and make sure that reps can just access, like you said, where you're spending 80% of your time. So yeah, they're not using your wiki, like they don't care. They're not going to, but like 2 reps are going to bookmark that. Get them in Salesforce or any whatever CRM you're using, HubSpot, Sugar, etc. Sales enablement platforms are good too. I know not everyone uses them, but if you have like a Seismic or a HighSpot, definitely a good option to keep them there too, if that's where the reps are more comfortable accessing that information. Or even Slack or chat. It's not my personal thing, but if reps are spending a lot of time in Slack, you can also keep them, store them there as well. Probably a little less common than the other 2, but definitely an option. And then I think another way to make it easy, to make it, to integrate more with the workflow is really, enable reps to give you like intel from the field, right? So maybe they're, at a conference or something, and there's a 1-pager that your competitor is giving out, and, they can, easily like append that to a battle card, or append that, send that to you in some way that, gets the battle card updated. Because you also, it's not just about finding what's on, your competitor's digital footprint. It's also finding, what reps are hearing out there in the field, whether it's like literally in the field at, a sales meeting, or, out in, a certain event or something. Getting that intel from them is also really valuable, because they're just hearing things that we're not finding.
Right. Speaking of availability of information, this is a good topic or time to ask Kirsty's question. I'm going to try to rephrase this, Kirsty, so bear with me. So Kirsty says that she works for a large multinational corporation, big legal department, working hard to make sure that they comply with all the applicable legislation. And what she has seen is that the information they use to discuss competitors with prospects needs to be available in the public domain, but the terms of conditions on company websites often prohibit the use of that information for competitive reasons. So what they end up doing is inventing a fake company. Like, imagine company A, where X, Y, and Z are the features of the product and their service structure is, ABC. And then the prospect is left like having to read between the lines and try to figure out what company A really is. So her question, I guess, this is a long question, and I apologize, but her question is basically, are other people just kind of avoiding the legal department? Like, what workarounds are there for doing this in a compliant way, but also having information that's useful?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I actually, I'm not a legal person, so I'm not, I don't not up on all legalese, but I mean, anything, that is available publicly, even if it is on their website, because battle cards are internal. Like you're not, taking something from their website and, making it public, right? You're doing, this is all internal. So I would just say, anything that is, public on not even just on their website, but also like I think a good example is like reviews on like G2 Crowd or like a Trust Radius or something. Like those are totally public. That is fair and also offers a great source of competitive intelligence. So yeah, I guess that's mostly what I would say there. I can dive into some legalese later for Kirsty, but I think that's a great question.
I guess the thing, maybe one distinction is that when you create a battle card, you're not giving it to the rep saying, here are the exact things you can tell a prospect about your competitor. The goal of the battle card is to educate the rep so that they can ask good questions, not to just be sharing everything that they know openly, necessarily,
yeah,
right?
Not like, well, hey, they do X, Y, Z. It's more like, it's really like handling the competitive objection. And it's also just like the way to like steer a conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and actually what I think is a really interesting thing, and we didn't get into it earlier, but I think a really useful thing for a battle card is also being able to tease out when a competitor is in a deal, but a prospect doesn't share that with you. A lot of that data you put in a battle card is like, hey, like, a prospect, some warning signs, right? Like they might ask, if someone asks about X type of integration, you can bet that this competitor is in the deal because that's what they have. And I think that is a very useful thing in battle cards, because often like a lot of prospects and reps on the call probably are familiar with this, that like they like a prospect isn't always going to just tell you that they're looking at a competitor. You can safely assume that they are, but if you hear certain questions, you can kind of like tease out in your head if a competitor is in the deal, and then it will help you kind of like steer the conversation in the right way.
Oh, I love that. That's a really insightful way to use them. It hadn't even occurred to me, to be honest.
Yeah,
probably everybody else here is like, yeah.
Your spidey sense is tingling.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Hopefully that was helpful, Kirsty.
Yeah, hopefully. My email address is at the end of this, so happy to take it offline, Kirsty, and we can chat.
We are not lawyers. Your mileage may vary.
Every webinar should be like, we're not lawyers. Just FYI.
Yeah.
Cool. So earning trust. So this is a really, I mean, this even goes beyond battle cards, but I think, a key way to drive adoption on your battle cards is, or your battle cards for sales, is making sure that the reps trust you and trust the content. Because, and here's my hot take alert. I would say that an inaccurate, outdated battle card is worse, much worse than having just no battle card at all. And the reason I say that is, reps on a call with a prospect and you get a question about a competitor, and you share, information that's just wrong. Like maybe it's a feature that they actually do have now, but the battle card didn't indicate that. That's pretty bad, it's not a good look, as they say. And, I think for a rep, at best, you look uninformed, and at worst, you look petty and dishonest. And that's the fault of the battle card creator, right? Like, the reps doing what they're supposed to do. It's not incumbent on the rep to like search what's going on with the competitor. It's really on the marketer or the sales enablement person who created the battle card. So if that happens, I'm sure a lot of really great reps on this call, they can recover quickly. They could be like, my marketer or something, I don't know, or whatever. You guys are skilled. I'm sure you can recover quickly, but sometimes, it doesn't happen. And the trust is broken with the prospect, which I think every rep on this call knows how integral that is, that your prospect trusts you. But also sales rep trust is broken in the marketer or sales enablement person. They don't have any trust in that battle card. So, it's super important that we are earning our reps trust with up-to-date content that is in sync with the market. So, there's pretty much two real key things. Never, ever, 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 ever have a outdated battle card. And I know that's tough because, lots of changes happen out there. Lots of, competitive information is flying, but you really want to be able to, integrate your competitive intelligence, with your battle cards to make sure that, your battle cards are always up to date, that you have the most relevant information and that it makes it to the battle card. And I would say in addition to that, let's say you're updating your battle cards, they're being updated in real time. But let's say, there's a major shift in the market, right? Let's say your competitor raises a huge round of funding or has a major product release. Obviously, you want to update your battle card, but you should also just separately just alert the team, talk to the sales team about it, give them some context and say, hey, battle card's updated, but you guys should know so-and-so, release this integration. Here's why it's important. Here's how you should talk about it. See the battle card for more details, but, just giving them that context so they know that you're on top of it. You are a reliable narrator and the source of information. And it can just help them prepare, for their calls and to be able to message that. I also think trust is, it goes the other way too, right? So I think another way to earn the trust of the reps isn't just, hey, always having a great updated battle card. That's awesome. But also what we talked about earlier, Colin, is, enabling sales reps to give feedback on a consistent basis, directly on the battle card. So if you have a battle card tool or, like I said, maybe you're using a Google Doc or something, having that kind of comment functionality. That signals to the reps yeah, I'm here to take your feedback. Your feedback is not to sound like a corporation, but your feedback is important to us. And we're listening and we are incorporated or responding to that feedback. And I think when those kind of comments are public, kind of effective like a Google Doc or something, other reps can see it and will also probably encourage them to join in and also give their feedback. It just shows that you're really invested in their success, and that you're listening and you're taking their feedback. And again, it will just help drive adoption because they know you're on top of it and they're just going to keep giving their feedback. So the more feedback, that means they like it.
Right. So you never even give that seed of doubt a chance to take root.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
I love it. Oh, that's a good tip.
Great. Earn the trust. Okay, so we're on the final portion here. We want to measure the success of our, or lack of battle cards, and iterate on that. Iterating both on those objective metrics and anecdotal feedback.
And everybody, we've got 12 minutes left. So we'll have a couple minutes, I think, after this last tip from Lauren for questions. So I have one from Sarah that I haven't gotten to yet. I've still got it, Sarah. Any other questions you want to throw out? We'll take them. Go for it.
Cool. So yeah, how do you know your battle card's working? What are the indicators? And so, we talked about feedback, and obviously feedback's awesome, but you're going to want some metrics to tie to your battle cards to understand, is this actually having an impact? So there's 3-ish metrics that I would go through here. So I would say chief among them is the competitive win rate. Competitive win rate is simply the percentage of time that you are winning deals against a competitor. It's probably the most, I would say it's definitely the most relevant metric that you can actually tie to your battle card, because it's the sole purpose is helping you win competitive deals, helping you handle competitive objections. So it's by far the most relevant metric. Secondary to competitive win rate, I would say, is just simply view metrics. So just measuring the usage. How often are sales reps using them on a consistent basis? I would say, again, you could have a Battlecards tool that gives you all this visibility. I know sales enablement platforms like Seismic and HighSpot and all them also give you view metrics and whatnot. Even wikis, I think Atlassian, I don't know if it gives you unique views, but it does give you view metrics into pages and stuff. So you can pretty much get view metrics from anywhere. And then a battle card leaderboard, less of a metric, but it's kind of a fun thing that if you're able to get that kind of visibility into how often each individual rep is using battle cards, so maybe your super top reps are like, using battle cards consistently, and that's visible to everyone. Reps want to, replicate the success of their peers or do better than them. So leaderboard's kind of a cool way to, measure the success of them on your side, but also help drive that adoption and get other reps excited. Okay, so how do we actually do that? I'm going to get a little deep and tactical here. So first, just usage statistics on your battle cards. I already went over that. Just, a wiki, a battle card tool, something that's going to give you that insight into usage. And then for competitive win rate, what you really want to do, and some of you might be doing this, is creating fields in your CRM to identify competitors in any deal. So like when you create an opportunity and maybe there's 1, 2, 3, whatever competitors in a deal, you want to indicate that. And I mean, this is a Salesforce, a fake Salesforce shot, but whatever you're using, you should be able to do this if you're not already. And the idea here is that we're trying to get a handle on competitive win rate. So again, the percentage of time that you're winning a deal against a competitor. So, create a pick list in your CRM at the opportunity level, so you can just identify those deals. And the goal is to understand over time how you're performing against a competitor. So, there's overall competitive win rate, right? There's just all the competitive deals ever. How are we doing? And then, doing something like this gives you the ability to actually slice the data and to, pick in attack, how are we doing against them? You can kind of see over time how we are doing. And then we just want to iterate based on the results. So, let's talk win rate first, right? So if you have low win rates, overall win rate is, obviously a problem. But if you just have low win rates across, overall and with over certain competitors, it's just really saying that your battle cards are not doing what they should be doing. They're either not using them, which you can look at low view metrics for that, but if they are using them, and, like in this example, you're losing deals to Intercom, I think in this example here, if you can take a look at that graph, if you're losing deals to a certain competitor, it's like, all right, well, this battle card, clearly it's either out of date. It's just not what the sales reps need. So that's like we talked about, indicators on like when to really step back and look at your battle cards. This is a key indicator of like, oof, our win rate's not good. Competitive win rate against this competitor, especially, like we got to do something about that.
Lauren, you made a good point before we joined about deal cycle and sales cycle length. So how do you think about win rate changing over time when you've just launched a whole new set of battle cards?
Totally, yeah. So I mean, obviously you want to remember the date, or it'll be marked in some system when you created the battle card, but win rate really measuring it depend on how long your sales cycle is. So for, some of you on the call, if you have like a 2-week sales cycle, you can get this data pretty quickly and understand your win rate. For a lot of you folks probably in SaaS businesses, maybe are 30 to 45 to 60 day sales cycles, takes a little longer. So, I mean, I would say just try to wait a little longer than the length of your sales cycle from when you start the battle card. Yeah, a little longer than the length of your sales cycle when you launch a battle card. So you kind of get that full picture. Because if you're like, all right, battle card, and then you wait like 2 weeks and your sales cycle is 45 days, like that just doesn't even tell you anything. So yeah, length of sales cycle is like a really big part of it.
Cool. And then with this graph, tell me if I'm reading it right. The blue is total competitive opportunities won. Mm-hmm. The darker pink is competitive ops lost to Intercom specifically, and then the light pink is other competitive opportunities lost.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so what happened here is pretty flat through the spring on all measures, more or less. But then in August, we saw more competitive opportunities won in total, mm-hmm. but also more competitive opportunities lost to Intercom in total, right?
Yeah.
So if this was your battle, your little set of data here, you see this happen in August, more competitive opportunities won, but also we lost more to Intercom. What do you take away from this, and what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. And then actually, this is why it's so important to have the visibility by competitor. Because if I was just someone that was like, hey, like a checkbox on an opportunity, if the deal is competitive, well, it's like, okay. And if I didn't have that dark pink for intercom, I'd be like, I'm killing it. Like, win rate's awesome. Competitive win rate's great. But it's so important to have that visibility. So what I would say is like, okay, cool. Like, seems like overall, competitive win rate is doing well. Seems like, but there's a problem with intercom. Like that's what we take with this. And it's like, let's get into that battle card. Let's figure out what's going on. Even repeat some of the earlier steps that we had of like, let's maybe interview some reps. Like let's get some, obviously we have the hard data here, but let's get some of that anecdotal data. Let's really just kind of do a revamp or just figure out what's going on. But I would definitely, what I would do based on this data is just immediately dive into the intercom battle card and be like, what's going on? I'm sure you'll find a whole host of things.
Maybe sit down with some reps and ask them about it. And
Totally.
yeah, cool. Okay. I think we've got time for, if it's okay with you, one more question from Sarah. This is a pretty cool question.
Yeah.
So Sarah is part of a big company, multiple products.
Oh.
And what she finds is that she tries to present like a total company versus a total company battle card can be overwhelming because there's almost too much to consider. So do you think it's more appropriate to do like a specific product versus a specific product battle card?
Yeah, and especially Sarah, that's an awesome question. And reach out to me after this because I'll have some blog posts to share with you just based on that. But I would say, that's a great idea because if you're selling in like that kind of market where it's like, multiple products, it's just way too overwhelming for one battle card. Like we said before, visual formatting is so important that, if you're just going to have this massive battle card, it's not going to work. I highly recommend doing that. Yeah, it's like giving it its own battle card, and it just makes it easier for the reps. They know what they want, and they can get what they want quickly. So, awesome question.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah. And I think, that's pretty much almost wrapped me up. And then finally, I kind of already went over it, but the leaderboards, you can create some FOMO with your reps. If your top reps are crushing it and they use battle cards a lot, you can surface that in a leaderboard. If you have that kind of visibility, if those reps are crushing it, the other ones will want to replicate that success. So highly recommend doing that. And then this is really my last slide. This is just, the recap of the adoption playbook, build them together, make them great. Be where sales is, integrate with their day, earn their trust, and make sure you're measuring for success and iterating. And that's really the adoption playbook.
And it is a thing of beauty. I have to say, I'm really grateful for you and Ellie and everybody at Crayon for being so thoughtful about battle cards because I think they've been an afterthought, for me at least, and for a lot of the people that I speak to. Nobody's thinking about them in depth at this granular level like this. So thanks for the advice. Anybody who just wants to learn more about battle cards or competitive intelligence in general can reach out to Lauren here, go to crayon.co, look her up on LinkedIn, all of those things.
Yeah.
I also want to just add, if anybody sees any value in reviewing game tape, like myself, I sometimes go back and watch my old webinars to see how boring I am and try to get less boring. And so if any of you spend time watching your own demos or watching demos from reps on your team, you may want to consider watching demos from other reps. So Sales Hacker has a new show out called Demolitions. My buddy Scott Barker and his pal Dave sit down and they watch a real sales demo and they give their best tips and advice. And you can sit there with them and watch what the rep says, watch what the prospect says, get their advice, get their hot take. It's cool to see something from outside your own company. And you can check it out at saleshacker.com/demolitions. And let us know what you think too, because this is a brand new thing for us. And if it's not useful, then it's a bad product, right? Just like we're talking about with battle cards. And there's my tie-in. That's my tie-in.
I love it. It was great. Love it.
Thanks everybody for the great participation too. Steve, Sarah, Lori, Bruce, Kirsty, awesome ideas and questions and comments. It's always fun to have the whole gang together. Sales Hacker community never lets me down.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say an especially big thank you to you, Lauren. I
Oh,
really appreciate it.
thanks for having me. I want to thank everyone else on the call. I love the Sales Hacker community. And I also want to say thank you for coming at the end of the month, which I know is like super stressful for you guys. You're trying to crush your quota. I know you're going to do it. But, you know, I really appreciate that you guys came on the call, and, you know, I hope it was helpful.
I think it was. I learned stuff.
Oh, great.
So, okay.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on another webinar, Sales Hacker webinar soon. Take care. Have a good rest of your week.